Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily scoop on everything Duke Blue Devils news. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. We thank you today, as well as every day, for joining into our show and listening to everything about the Duke Blue Devils. It's basketball season, so we're getting into basketball. The Duke Blue Devils pick up their ninth Quadrant 1 win of the season, as the net rankings currently stand, with a convincing 72-58 victory over the Virginia Tech Hokies on the road. Virginia Tech now falls to 16-7 overall in the season and 5-5 in league play, whereas the Blue Devils improved to 20-1 overall and 9-0 in conference play. As it's really been for the majority of league play, Duke has had minimal issues running through the rest of the conference. This was 6 of the last 7 games where Duke has won by double digits, and 3rd of the last 4th where Duke has won by over 20 points. Granted, this was the one of the 4 where Duke didn't win by over 20. But again, a decisive victory, and a victory that took a lot of heart from the Blue Devils, where Virginia Tech was making a push. Really, through the first 15 minutes of the game, it looked like Duke was going to win in convincing fashion. Duke got that lead out to 16 points at one point in the first half, playing elite defense, and it really looked like this one was going to be a pretty decisive victory for the Blue Devils from there on out. But Virginia Tech made a push at home, was a great road environment and a really tough environment for Duke to play in. And Virginia Tech made a push, brought the deficit to 9. Duke entered the halftime locker room with a 40-31 lead. Again, after that lead, got out to as many as 16 points in the first half. And really, for the majority of the second half, Virginia Tech kept it close, kept it within single digits, and really gave Duke a bit of a run. It got out to double digits early in the second half for Duke in terms of their lead, but Virginia Tech continued to make pushes, continued to bring themselves back into the ball game, and really made it a tough go for the Blue Devils. And it was very back and forth for a lot of the second half of the second half, where Virginia Tech really just wasn't going away. Duke would make pushes, would make buckets when they needed to, but Virginia Tech really just kept coming back. And it was really the defensive effort down the stretch that really got Duke to win the ball game. Duke held a 62-56 lead with just over 6 minutes to go, with a lot of the momentum favoring the Hokies. And then throughout the last 6 minutes and change of the ball game, Duke outscored the Hokies 10-2. Virginia Tech only allowed 2 points throughout the remainder of the ball game for Duke to exit with a 72-58 victory. Double-digit victory for the Blue Devils. And Virginia Tech is an NCAA tournament team as it currently stands. ESPN's latest bracketology update heading into the matchup had Virginia Tech as one of the last 4 teams in. So a team that really could have given Duke a run for its money, and a team that could have gotten hot defensively. Virginia Tech is a very good defensive three-point shooting team, and Duke once again dominated in the paint. John Shire made it clear that the intent for this team was to dominate the paint, and that's how the team is going to succeed over the last few games. We're really seeing it from the Blue Devils. Duke has been dominant inside in terms of the offensive glass, in terms of paint points in general, and taking care of the basketball while not fouling on defense. Today against the Hokies, Blue Devils with 46 points in the paint compared to Virginia Tech's 24, as well as 12 offensive rebounds for the Blue Devils. Duke out-rebounded Virginia Tech in total, 33-26. From the free throw line, however, this was really the first game in quite some time where the Blue Devils didn't outwardly dominate their opponent in terms of just sheer free throw attempts. Both teams are very good about not fouling, and both are very solid defensive teams. So it was a very fast-paced game and was very expected by a lot of fans coming into it, but a very fast-paced game in general. Duke went 5 of 7 from the line, Virginia Tech 5 of 6. So really the first game all year where Duke didn't at least handily win the free throw department, and it really wasn't a major advantage for the Blue Devils. Again, we've talked about on previous episodes throughout the season that Duke has really needed to improve its free throw shooting percentage, because in practically every game this season, it has absolutely dominated its opponents in terms of free throw attempts. This was the first game where it was a non-factor for the Blue Devils and really did nothing at all. In terms of makes, it literally did nothing at all, but it didn't matter because Duke is making it an intent to get inside the paint as it's been doing over the last few games, and it's continuing to pay dividends. Duke went just 5 of 21 from three-point land in this game. 21 of their 59 shots were from the three-point line. An early part of conference play where Duke was having these tight games, and Duke just looked off. It was kind of hard to explain in a way, but the Blue Devils just looked off on both sides of the ball. And a lot of that had to do with getting a bit 3-point happy. And Duke has cleaned that up very, very well over the last few games, and it's paid dividends for the Blue Devils. Again, another double-digit victory in conference play for Duke. Their 6th of their last 7 games. With the win, Duke earns their 9th Quadrant 1 victory of the season. They improved to 13-1 overall in the first 2 quadrants, as well as 7-0 in true road games. The only other squad with 9 Quadrant 1 victories is 22-0 Arizona, the unanimous number 1 team in the AP poll and the number 1 team in the net rankings. But Duke continuing to put together potentially the best overall body of work in all of college basketball. It still seems like Duke has yet to cement itself as a favorite to win the national title. It still seems to be Arizona, Michigan, and UConn in that tier, and Duke a tier below. But if you look at the body of work, Duke is right up there with the rest of the favorites. They've beaten everybody. Their one loss on the year is a 1-point neutral floor loss to number 11 Texas Tech that came on December 20th at Madison Square Garden. Outside of that, Duke is 7-1 against ranked opponents and has really just done a dominant job throughout the ACC so far. And we've talked about it on previous episodes yet again, but it felt like this was going to be a lot more difficult for Duke to really run the ACC. It went 19-1 in the league in 2024-25. But that was a very, very mediocre conference, and it felt like this conference was very much improved from a season ago, which it is. However, Duke just really hasn't had any problems, and it's played some quality opponents. It's played Louisville. It's played SMU. Virginia Tech is a very solid team, and Duke still has some more games like that on the conference slate, but it's just really difficult to picture this team losing because it's been so dominant. And sure, Virginia Tech made a push, but it never really felt like Virginia Tech was going to win the game, despite it being against a potential NCAA tournament team on the road in a really hostile environment where Virginia Tech really packed the crowd. And it just felt like Duke was in control for the majority of the game, even when Virginia Tech continued to make a push. Cameron Boozer, Duke's freshman sensation, just continues to put up video game numbers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Today against the Hokies goes for a game-high 24 points to go along with 8 rebounds and 5 assists on 9 of 12 shooting from the field, 2 of 3 shooting from 3, and 4 of 5 shooting from the free throw line. Is also double figures with 11 points of his own on 5-11 shooting from the field. But this is why we know Duke is getting better, is Isaiah Evans went 0 for 4 from the three-point line and wasn't a non-factor, but wasn't as dominant as he can be, wasn't as electric as he can be from outside. And Duke still managed to get the victory and really win with its defense and didn't let that become a factor. Against Texas Tech, it felt like that became a factor a lot. Isaiah Evans took very few shot attempts, and it just felt like that was a major factor. There were some illness concerns coming in for the Blue Devils. Dame Sarr and Caleb Foster were always expected to play, but Caleb Foster came off the bench for the first time this season, both dealing with an illness the day before. John Shire really credited Foster after the victory, paraphrasing here, but said that Foster was as sick as he could possibly be last night, and then comes in and he makes big-time plays down the stretch. Caleb Foster goes for 7 points, 7 boards, and 4 assists on 3 of 7 shooting, made some great defensive plays down the stretch for the Blue Devils. Again, I think he's Duke's best perimeter defender at the guard spot, continues to show just how dominant he can be and how crucial of a part of this team he is game in and game out. What a bounce-back season that Foster is having, and just a really impressive story overall. Another guy I want to talk about is Malik Brown, who game in and game out is one of those guys that just makes winning plays. He earns his minutes not because of the box score. He's only averaging about 4 points and 5 rebounds on the season. He went for 11 points today, which ties his career high with the Blue Devils, and was also the first he's ever taken double-digit shot attempts. He went for 11 points on 5 of 10 shooting from the field to go along with 2 steals, but it's those winning plays on the defensive side of the ball that continues to get him his minutes, and one of the most important players on Duke roster. Duke's bench as a whole is continuing to kind of generate itself as a really important part of the rotation just generally. If you count Caleb Foster 7 points off the bench, that goes towards it, but usually that's not going to happen. Brown went for 11. Darren Harris went for 2 in his 5 minutes of action. But a very, very complete defensive effort from Duke held Virginia Tech to 42% from the field and 7 of 26 from the three-point line. That's a 27% clip while only allowing 6 free throws. Another convincing win for the Blue Devils. Duke continues to look like one of the best teams in the country and a national title favorite. 9th Quadrant 1 victory as the net rankings currently stand. Duke still heavily in the mix for a 1 seed based off the total body of work. I think the consensus number 1 seeds right now would definitely have to be Arizona, Michigan, UConn, and Duke. Duke, I think, is generally viewed as that 4th 1 seed, but I'm not sure that's the case. This team looks dominant. It has the best player in the country on it and looks so complete on both sides of the ball. Duke is absolutely rolling right now. Next up for the Blue Devils is a home game against Boston College, which is 9-12 overall, 2-6 in the league. That's going to be at Cameron Indoor Stadium on February 3rd before the first edition of the Duke and North Carolina rivalry on February 7th in Chapel Hill. That is going to do it here from us at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. Again, we thank you so much for listening and tuning in every single day to keep up with everything Duke Blue Devils news. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.